Well, we got it. Did you get yours? I'm talking about your first freeze. We got ours this past week. Actually, I had several of them. Finally, some cold air at night at least, but warm air is coming back into the forecast. You know, we're often asking ourselves a couple important questions this time of year. When do I stop mowing? When do I stop watering? Folks, you know, one thing I've learned over the years with lawn care on YouTube is that if you're expecting to get online and find a universal answer that applies to everybody about how they should do things, you will never stop looking. There ain't one. I promise you. There ain't one. You know those little things where you answer questions, it's like, if yes, go here. If no, go there. And then you keep going through the chain troubleshooting to get your answer. It's kind of how lawn care is. You're never going to get everything you want to know in the first spot. Well, I guess you could say, in my case, the lawn season is officially over. I had already kind of mailed it in, not really because I gave up, but because the weather had been extremely dry and extremely hot for the fall, 90s for temperatures. Still not a drop of rain. We are under a severe drought, quickly headed to an extreme drought, but that freeze or two this past week really took pretty much any remaining color out of the lawn. So look, my season's going to end at a different time than yours, than the next person's, than the next person's, than the next person's. It really all depends on where you're at and what type of grass you have. I have Bermuda. I am in the transition zone. And one freeze and it says, "See you later, alligator. I'm out of here for the season." Gosh, Sally, I just picked up all this crap yesterday. Well, at least we know she's healthy, right? She's getting old. She just turned 9 this past August. It's so hard to believe how old she is. What's not old is the plants. I did put a little water on these yesterday, hand watered them, because they just, gosh, I just needed it. Nothing works like Mother Nature water, though. They really could use some of that. Hey, speaking of some of that, question I get asked all the time: do you use landscape fabric? Or, hey, get out of there. What are you doing? No, get out of there. People ask all the time, do you use landscape fabric or weed barrier underneath your mulch? The answer is no. That's what the mulch is for. Why would you do such a thing? The mulch is there to hold in moisture. Hey, what? Just because go, get out of here. I try to keep her out of these things because she likes to dig in here. But that's what the mulch is for. The mulch will hold in moisture and it will prevent weeds. Will it prevent all weeds? No, because eventually you're going to get weed seeds that drop into that upper layer of mulch and they'll germinate there. But if you just don't let that become a huge problem and you go out and you pick them by hand or zap them, the ones that won't go away, then the mulch is doing its job. So do not put landscape fabric underneath your mulch, but do put it underneath your stones. That's the only place that I will put landscape fabric, is underneath this gravel or these stones. What that does is helps keep all your rocks from settling into the soil. And of course it's going to help keep weeds away. But remember, landscape barrier, fabric, weed barrier, underneath the mulch, no. Underneath the rocks, that's a go. Okay. Hey, something came out this past week and I saw it in the news and I thought, you know what, that's worth sharing. I like knowing about these kind of things. Maybe you do, maybe you don't, but I'm kind of a weather geek. And when I see things in the forecast, I want to know what they mean. Well, there have been some changes ahead of the winter weather that will be here before you know it, and I wanted to share that news with you. Talking about my first frost, my first freeze, I think this is something you ought to know. You should be looking online at some point to know when your last frost or freeze is in the spring and your first in the fall. And what does that mean exactly? Well, one of my local news stations put this online the other day, and I saw it and I thought, you know what? I'm going to share that. For my area, we typically get our first frost or freeze around October 15th or 16th. This actually says October 19th. And wouldn't you know it, October 16th was the morning of our first freeze. Typically that's a light frost, but it was a little bit more than that this year. A light frost is considered to be between 29 and 32 degrees Fahrenheit. That's when you will see a light frost. You will see a hard freeze between 25 and 28 degrees Fahrenheit. And then a killing freeze, which is lights out for pretty much everything, comes at around 25 degrees and below. Look those up. Look, you've got your farmer's almanacs. You've got all sorts of resources online that can give this information for you. And you kind of got to be one of those people in this lawn care game that is curious about these things. I know a lot of times if the video doesn't specifically say how to have a better lawn for beginners or the beginning steps to a nice lawn or, you know, the same old broken record topics, then a lot of people won't click on them. But you got to know so much more than just those basics. All right, it will make your life a whole lot easier. You'll quit relying on somebody online to give you the answer to everything if you'll just go out and do a little bit of digging yourself. All right, but here's the changes that are coming for this winter. These took place on October 1st. And you know, when we see warnings and watches coming, maybe it's a tornado watch, a tornado warning, you got to know what those are, right? Tornado watch means, look, the environmental conditions out there, they're prime for tornado activity, versus a tornado warning, which means, look, there's a tornado spotted on the ground or potentially indicated on radar. That means there's imminent threat from an ongoing tornado, perhaps. Well, you know, we got to know those things for tornadoes, so why don't, or thunderstorm watches, so why don't we know them for wintertime? Well, they made some changes to some of the watches and warnings that you're used to seeing through the colder months. And here they are, wind chill watches, and all these begin again on October 1st. Wind chill watches will be renamed to an extreme cold watch. Wind chill warnings will be renamed to an extreme cold warning. And a wind chill advisory will be renamed to a cold weather advisory. So basically all they did was remove the verbiage or the language of wind chill. Why did they do that? Because they wanted to consolidate this and make it a little bit more clear and not leave so much up to interpretation and get everybody understanding the same thing. A wind chill, to most people, that means absolutely nothing. Really, all it needs to mean is it's going to be freaking cold. So the wind chill language was removed, and they also had some consolidation with freeze watches and warnings. A hard freeze watches, those hard freeze watches will be renamed to a freeze watch, and a hard freeze warning will be consolidated to a freeze warning. All this out by the National Weather Service. Okay, but it's a freeze watch or a cold watch or an extreme cold warning. What the heck does that mean? An extreme cold watch means an extreme cold watch is issued when dangerously cold air, with or without wind. That's why the wind chill part of it was just eliminated, because it can be freaking cold with the wind or without the wind. But an extreme cold watch is issued when dangerously cold air with or without wind is possible. You'll check the forecast to be prepared in case a warning is issued, because if it is, an extreme cold warning is issued when dangerously cold air with or without the wind is expected. These conditions could lead to frostbite or hypothermia. Limit time outside, dress in layers, and cover up exposed skin. You also want to be aware of these, especially if you're into lawn and gardening, because you're going to need to know what they mean so that you can cover up any plants that are sensitive, any sensitive vegetation to extreme cold or frost or freeze conditions this time of year. You might want to cover it up. I don't have to cover up any of this. What I've got here is some orange rocket barberry shrubs up there. Those really went into some planting shock back this past summer and lost some leaves, not looking the way I'd want them to. Those will lose their leaves late in the winter and re-leaf out in the spring. These are the Cat's Meow Catmint. Those, they're going to come back in the spring. It's a perennial. I'll take those all the way down to the stubs in the spring once all this foliage starts really dying off, and those will come back anew in the spring. Same with these Maury strain Artemisia. They're looking kind of rough right now. I had a battle with ants, and they just, with the cooler temperatures at night and less sunshine and heat in the day, those are already starting to check out. But those will go back down to the stubs in the spring, and they'll come back all nice and pretty next year. All these are evergreens, of course. These are blue rug junipers. Up along the top, that's an Andorra compacta juniper. Eventually, the way I've got these spaced out about 4 feet apart, all these blue rugs will form a really dense matted carpet that will help to control any water, any runoff, erosion, and will really take over this entire hillside and look great here in a few years. At the top, a little slightly bigger juniper with the Andorra to kind of give it a two-tiered look. And eventually all this will be filled in. But gosh, folks, that right there, that was working itself. Okay, hey, come here. Sally's out here barking at the next door neighbor. Anyway, folks, okay. That's it. You know, your season ends when your season ends. There's no way for anyone to tell you when to stop mowing or when to stop watering. Too many variables. Too many variables. The weather, the rain, the temps, all that is going to have a huge impact on when you stop cutting your grass and irrigating it. Mine ended much sooner this year than it did last year because of all those variables. So if I pretend to try to tell you that it's still full steam ahead or the end of the road, I'd be leading you in the wrong direction. Okay, that's it. Hey, look, I hate saying this, I hate doing this, but look, you really got to hit that thumbs up button. If you enjoy these videos this time of year, that tells YouTube that you keep wanting to see these, even though we are heading into the off season, and that will keep showing them to you and to many others. But that's going to wrap this one up for us this time, and I will see you soon.